Can you beat Legends of Idleon without crafting? Well, it certainly sounds hard, right? I mean, it's an idle game after all. The very game genre that has you continuously upgrading your gear and stats to such ridiculous numbers that they literally no longer fit on your screen. And with this challenge, I'm not allowed to craft any items. That means no armor, no weapons, no talismans or trinkets,
no dick, no balls,
etc, etc. So, how do you tackle those milestones and requirements if you can never even make any gear in the first place? Well, today I set out on a journey to answer that exact question. Could I beat Legends of Idleon without crafting? Alright, given that the game is absolutely massive and that the creation of this video was time limited, I obviously did not have the time to beat the entirety of the game this way. As such, I instead decided on the following two goals that I wanted to achieve. Number one was to beat the Blunder Hills boss, Amarok, a mighty stone jungle warrior who guards a great gem named Desert Topaz somewhere deep within the jungles of Blunder Hills. And number two, to complete every single NPC questline that I physically could. Since I couldn't really craft, I wasn't able to complete any questlines that required me to do so. This included both crafting specific items and even just turning in big amounts of materials, since I had no way of upgrading my inventory outside of the gem shop, which takes a while to save up for, and I don't really think it would have been fair to force myself to spend real life money on them. And with that, my journey began. I started off on my non-crafting quest by creating my first of many characters, and given the task at hand, I thought there was only one appropriate name for them. No crafting. I also picked the starting baseball hat and tough guy star sign since I was going to make this a warrior class character, and the two gave me some increased strength points to start out with, as well as a 1% boost in all dealt damage. Having loaded in, I instantly ran over to the anvil to start making production items, which I could sell for some decent coin later down the line, as I wasn't gonna need them for crafting, and then picked up Scriptus' first and comedically last quest. He gives you the hardcore task of walking over into the next world node to stab some low-level green mushrooms, and in return, he rewards you with some money and 1 crimson string. Now usually, you'd go straight to the anvil to craft yourself the first weapon in the game and already improve your fighting stats. Unfortunately for me, however, that wasn't possible. In fact, the only weapon that you are able to get without crafting in the entirety of the game is the Carrot Man bow, which is found about halfway through the first world. Realizing that, I wiped the tears off of my face, invested my level up talent points into Sharpened Axe for optimal damage output, and picked up the rest of the townfolk's quests. First, there was Mr. Piggybang, who wanted me to find out who stole his stamp collection, Grasslands Gary, who refused to elaborate until I reached character level 14, the Builderbird, which required the legendary gemstone I mentioned earlier, and finally the Town Marble, that wanted me to turn him into a Chad with the purchasable sculpting tools sold in the shop. I made my way over to the mines on the left, and standing nearby was Glumly, a miner goblin that gave me a few basic tasks about mining, such as gathering ore, smelting it down into copper bars in the nearby furnace, upgrading said furnace with Scriptus' coins, and more. Usually, you'd have already received a pickaxe to mine with from completing Scriptus' second quest here, but I sadly did not have that luxury. In fact, the only pickaxes you can get without crafting either drop from mini boss that has like 20 times more stats than the World 1 boss, and the other has a 1 in 120 chance to drop per enemy killed in an event that has a 25% chance to spawn somewhere in the world once every full hour. Quickly breezing through these first few quests, I received some nice mining XP as a reward, as well as some town potions, which allowed me to quickly teleport to the town from anywhere in the game as opposed to walking, and a small upgrade to my carry capacity for mining materials. Speaking of mining, it is one of the free character skills that are found in World 1 alongside wood chopping and crafting, with 3 corresponding classes to pick from that specialize in each one. Leveling up each skill type by performing the respective actions, as well as leveling up your main character level by defeating monsters, grants you talent points. You spend these points to improve your character's stats, ranging from health, damage, and skill efficiency, to XP gain, increased loot drops, and more. This is the main way you upgrade most of your stats in-game, and given that I wasn't able to craft myself any gear, I need to make the very most out of each talent point I receive throughout my characters to tackle World 1's boss and its challenges. Anyways, returning to my mining of copper, there wasn't much else that the ore was useful for in the moment given my lack of crafting permission. So I headed eastward, progressing past the mushroom zone and entering the froggy fields. Now as you can see here, given my lack of armor, I couldn't quite survive the enemies in this zone yet, not unless I played like I was fighting an Elden Ring boss at least, and so I continued down the path, making my way past Hamish as he couldn't complete his questline, and over to the Grand Frog's gazebo, a dungeon within which the great Grand Frogger resides. At the entrance, I spoke to Toadstall, who shows you the basics of how dungeons work, and joined a party of 2 other players before setting foot into Grand Frogger's lair. I won't go into a lot of detail about how dungeons work, but you basically try to bonk as many frogs as you can before the timer runs out, all the while you collect items that boost your fighting stats for that specific run and beat harder and harder versions of the Grand Frogger boss along the way. On our first attempt, we managed to defeat the first 2 stages of the Grand Frogger, which yielded in some decent dungeon credits I'd be spending in a bit, and then we decided to do one more run before heading our separate ways. And while it went mostly the same as the first one, well... Can I stop getting movement speed? Like, bro, I've really gone movement speed 18 times. I just had some interesting luck, as I kept getting movement speed increase instead of a useful stat like damage or health. Leaving the dungeon, I headed back to Toadstall where I spent my earnings and upgraded some of my dungeon stats for future runs, as well as unlocking the Super Source Star talent, with which I could upgrade the base efficiency of all skills for each character. A great talent that mostly made up for the void my missing tools had left behind. Upon returning home, I was already greeted with a pop-up screen notifying me that I was able to create a new character, so I did just that, choosing the propeller hat and bookworm star sign as his starting items, as well as naming them after the most painful sound known to mankind.
Magic!
Indeed, my plan was to make this character the mage class. I loaded into the game with
Magic!
And instantly took the same steps as I originally did with No Crafting Guy. Started producing items in the anvil, pick up every quest from the town NPCs, head on over to the left and completed Lumley's first 3 quests, and then heading back to the right again to bonk a few green mushrooms for scriptures. Upgrading some of my talents with the levels I had just gained, I decided to walk Magic over to the oak tree in the green mushroom zone and let him do some AFK chopping while I swapped back to No Crafting. There was a Valentine's event going on at the time that made monsters drop goody chocolate boxes, but there were only some weird blue stones inside. Okay. Glega, what do we have? A full inventory. At least there was a bowtie helmet though, and some XP granting consumables. Quite nice. I actually did not account for Valentine's drops when I was making a plan of how to do this challenge, and this Valentine's hat was already better in stats than any of the helmets I planned to use along the way, so that was a pleasant surprise. And since I was already at Valentine's loot, I tried to bonk the special slime variant that was part of the event, since it gave you items as well, but I couldn't even hit it due to my low stats. Alright, with 2 characters in my roster so far, I decided to get some upgrades going. First, I left No Crafting to AFK fighting the green mushrooms, as their drops would allow me to upgrade the anvil for each character, and with that their crafting level. And in the meantime, I played as Magic, bonking monsters for XP, more chocolate boxes, and to unlock the next zones of the world. I made a short stop at the Colosseum NPC in Froggy Fields, who insists you defeat a few higher level frogs there to gain access to his Colosseum, with which I also completed his questline. I went back to the town momentarily, just to buy an upgrade stone for each of my characters' helmets, giving them enough defense to survive frogs, when I also realized that I just reached level 8, which meant I unlocked the clown NPC who lets you gamble your balls away for money and stats. Damn. That's sick. Defense upgraded, I confidently made my way over to the frog area as No Crafting and used a time candy to skip an hour of time, bringing him up to level 10. And with this milestone, I was finally able to make my way onto the next zone, the Bean Valley, where I spoke with Promovius. Promovius lets you pick a character's starting class, so I picked Warrior for No Crafting as planned and traveled back to the town to upgrade my helmet some more, as well as to cop an accuracy boosting stamp from the store. As it turns out, the stamp thief that Mr. Piggybang was asking about at the start of the game is Hamish, that pig I passed by earlier. Upon informing Mr. Piggybang of this matter, he opens up his stamp collection, which basically just allows you to upgrade your stats in exchange for money and resources, and upgraded my accuracy stat a few times, making sure my enemy hit chance stayed above 100% as I discovered new monsters. What? You can get a... Yo, you can get a 1 gem candy? I'll take it. Alright. That's a steal. I did not know that. Some fighting later, I had picked up Magic's Mage class for Promovius and reached the jungle parameter, a zone occupied by slimes, as well as a funky looking leaf NPC, which, as it turned out, I couldn't speak to since I do Scripture's quest. I didn't know that was a thing. Looking at the fighting statistics for these new enemies, it was clear to me that I needed to get some more upgrades for my characters to continue exploring at a steady pace, so I headed back to town, where I saw an interesting message pop up, and upgraded a bunch of my stamps for extra stats, before leaving both Magic and No Crafting to bonk some more monsters while I was away. And just like that, it was already time to create my third character. Given that I already had a warrior and mage going, the only leftover class for me to shoot for, wink wink, was Archer. I of course picked the Flexo Bando Star Sign and Great Barret as this character's starting items, since they had the most agility stat, which is the primary stat for archers, and named them after the first archer that came to my mind. For the third time now, I loaded in with this new character and made my way over to the anvil to start producing items, picked up the NPC quests around the town, completed the first 3 quests from Glumley and 1 from Scriptures, then sold some anvil production items to upgrade his starting hat and his anvil. Then I fought my way over to the Froggy Fields and let him chill there while I switched back to Magic. I picked up the last quest I could possibly complete from Prometheus, in which he requests that you seek out the Baba Yaga, an urban legend from Slavic folklore. Basically, it's a chunky World 1 boss that spawns every full hour in a certain node on the map, but I kept forgetting to check that area every full hour, so I just thought I'd mention that because I literally missed it by a few minutes about 6 times in the playthrough. After some fighting, I reached character level 19 with magic. This meant that I could now talk to Grassland's Gary, the town NPC who refused to elaborate until one of your characters reached this milestone. Speaking to him back at the town now, he opened up his merit and unlock shop, which allow you to complete small achievements in return for merit points that are spent on permanent account-wide upgrades. I purchased a decent XP boost that was always be active for my lowest level character, and also unlocked the Goblet of Lifesteal talent, it's all called that but I forget the name, which heals characters for a little bit of health every time they got a kill. In addition, you can unlock new crafting recipes here. Nice. Instead, I just bought the gem pack and left, which is kind of funny since lava explicitly tells you to always buy that last, but I wasn't crafting, so. While I was in the merit shop, I also remembered that guilds were a thing, so I scoured across Discord in search of a decent one to join, when suddenly... Don't mind if I do. It seemed that the very gods of IdleON had shown down their blessings upon me, for it was happy hour time. You already know I joined the fuck out of that. This was dungeons with 20 times the rewards. Since I really needed any stats that I could get this run, I actually took my time for once and looked around until I found a full party of players before we jumped in. And goddamn, since I had played those dungeon runs before, I had enough stats to actually be helpful this time around. And with all the high level players we had, we managed to kill the first boss in under a minute, followed by the second in 2.5. And the third that since he was taking so long to die, I decided to do the Discord join and tweet thingy for 100 free gems while I waited, and the Frogger fell soon enough, which apparently still wasn't his last stage by the way. But anyways, I stepped out of the dungeons and I was balling in loot. I had literally gained the same amount of dungeon money and XP as I had in total on my main account, and so I went absolutely ham with the upgrades. I purchased the next star talent, which increases attack the more dungeon coins you've earned in your lifetime, 3 accuracy and 4 defense boosting rings, as well as upgrading a ton of my base game stats alongside it. I headed back to town and realized my characters were still unfortunately too low of a level to actually equip the rings, so I just slapped them in each one of their inventories for later, giving an accuracy and 1 defense ring to each character, except for Venti, since he was going to be my main one, who I gave 2. Being the Archer class, he was the only character that I could actually get a weapon on, and if I was going to beat this boss at the end of the world, I needed the extra defense ring on him. I also joined the guild I was mentioning earlier, which gave me some nice overall stat boost just for being a part of it, and as I was finishing up the session, I realized that the mage class has a bug. That is, I noticed that despite having the lightning strike attack equipped, it wasn't triggering here in the normal game, but it had been in the dungeons. I can only assume that you're not even supposed to be using just your bare hands at this point in the game, so it's not programmed to activate unless you're using a magic staff, but I mention it just in case. I bonked a few Valent slimes before finally heading off, unlocking their card that increases your defense by a certain percentage, and then decided to call it there for the day, leaving all of my characters to fight slimes, and concluding day 1 with the following levels.
Baba Booey.
I logged on again in the evening of the same day after a few hours had passed, which gave my characters enough time to get some progress and XP from their AFK. Loading into no crafting, I collected his AFK loot and equipped some of the new monster cards I gathered, as well as his defense ring since he was not high enough level to actually equip it. Heading back to town to sell some items, I bought the base damage statues from the shop, which I was saving for Venti, since statues don't share between characters until World 2, as well as upgrading the anvil and a bit of every fighting stamp. Then I went to the new zone I unlocked by AFK fighting and found a very funny man guy person whose quest I couldn't do, so I just let no crafting AFK there. I then did the same thing with Venti and magic, except I made him a skilling preset for wood chopping and left him on the oak tree instead.
Pipi und Kaki.
The following day, I started off by logging in as no crafting and claiming his AFK rewards before heading back to the town to do my daily shopping. I copped an inventory upgrade, a new stamp that increases maximum mana, the free base damage statues for Venti, and finally the sculpting tools, which made the town marble absolutely bricked up and unlocked statue depositing for this character. While I was at it, I also upgraded all my stamps to their max and bought a few bribes, which made my shop items sell for more and increased enemy drop chance. Also, since enough time had passed, I had a few balls to collect from the Body Old Pal clan over there, and throwing them into the flipper machine, I gained enough points to buy 3 additional talent points for our to buy 3 additional talent points for our character. Am I dyslexic? To buy 3 additional talent points for all of my characters. No crafting was high enough level to equip his defense ring now, but I made him mine copper instead of fighting. You'll see why in a bit. I invested most of my points into the warrior talent Big Pick, since it makes a single one of your pickaxe swings very chunky, with the cooldown of just a few seconds, and left my man to AFK there while I switched to magic. I claimed his AFK loot, also known as an inventory full of logs, and with that, I was able to complete the last quest from Woodman. From Woodman. What is his name actually? Wait, it's straight up woodsman? What the fuck? Alright, the last woodsman quest, for which I got an actual axe, as well as a small chopping resources bag upgrade. Heading to the town, I used the wood I just got to increase the pickaxe stamps max level and upgraded it, which in turn allowed me to claim 2 more merit points from Grassland's Gary, which I invested into extra character XP. Then, I switched to Magic's fighting build and went over to the snake area to manually kill them until I reached the Carrot Man zone. Indeed, these were the very mobs that dropped the only weapon in the game you can get without crafting. And so for the second day, I at least wanted to move every character up until the zone in hopes of getting one. I opened the chocolate boxes I got on my way here, and they dropped a sick looking flower equipable that increases all stats by 10%. I instantly equipped them to bedazzle up magic, and with that I left them to AFK. Next up was Venti's turn. I did all of his AFK loot claiming and stuff, turning in the damage statues I was saving for him, and remember the funny trick you can do with the archer class. I switched his talent preset to the second slot and turned to the archer talents page. Basically, as I mentioned before, archers are good at crafting, so good in fact that they can break the game a little bit with their talent Acme Anvil. It reads +1 anvil upgrade point for every level of this talent, right? So I invested all my points into it and then upgraded my anvil. Just look at the difference. Then, however, I could switch back to my fighting build and the points stayed the same, basically giving me like an extra 100 points to invest into anvil upgrades. Now, I had one of each class already, so I wasn't really sure what to name the fourth person, but I received a great suggestion from my sweet bean while we were in the voice chat. You make characters.
Gregory.
Gregory.
The fuck? Yeah,
Okay, Gregory.
that's a Gregory, man.
And so, Gregory was born.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
I loaded in his Gregory and instantly started producing anvil items before picking up every town quest NPC and making my way over to Glummy again to complete his first quest, which gave me an achievement and some gems actually. I'll take it, you know. And then I returned to the town where I upgraded Start Handler with a starting stone from the shop and went on to Mario Stumps and Green Mushrooms for Scriptus' first quest before going on a murderous bean rampage until I reached level 10. I picked the archer class for him as well, since he could actually use a weapon that way, and I could double down with the anvil points life hack from before, which the game didn't let me do for some reason. I guess there's a few features such as this and auto attacking, which don't unlock until you do the tutorial or something. Too bad, I guess. So I just let Gregory AFK on slimes and switched to Venti to stab some enemies, reaching the enroaching forest villas. Now, there are a couple of NPCs in this area, as well as a shop, so I picked up all of their quests, and they read as follows. The Tiki Chief wanted me to bring him 1000 nails from the anvil and 500 planks from the enemies below, but I literally couldn't carry more than 300 of either of those two, so his questline was a no-go. The cat, I did not the cat, and finally Dogbone wanted me to find out how he died, and given he's a ghost and all, I must mention, I just love his gravestone design. I said sure and went to stab the wooden plank people below, and got absolutely pummeled, by the way. So I reallocated his talents and borrowed the defense ring from no crafting. Then I left him there to AFK, concluding the second day with the following character levels.
Hey, yeah?
It was now the second evening of the challenge run, and I opened the game to collect that sweet AFK loot haul before hitting the hay. First, I loaded in with no crafting, who could gather enough mining experience throughout the day to unlock the next mining area that contained silver and gold. Making my way down the mine shaft's ropes, I came across Mutton and Krug, both of which seemed to be quite chill with staying so deep in this random cave for days on end. Sadly, I couldn't complete the quest they had offered me, as they both required me to craft items, but I did now have access to iron ore, which I needed to upgrade my maximum defense stamp level back at the town. And while I was there, I decided to use a time candy to get some mining XP and reach level 11, which allowed me to finish Glumly's questline. Now this is just a small side note, but finishing Glumly's questline awards you with the Convert XP skill, which basically lets you get main character XP that you would normally get from fighting monsters while skilling. It's not a huge boost, and even the dev bullies it for how bad it is, but I didn't know you had to use it like an attack to activate it. Anyways, with that new knowledge, I did equip the talents to actually convert my mining XP into main XP, upgrading the defense stabs max level once since I just gained iron with that time candy, and then I left no crafting to mine some more throughout the night. Switching to Gregory, I claimed his AFK loot and all that jazz, invested some of his talent points into monster drop priority to have a better chance at getting a bow or maybe some armor from enemies, and then manually killed snakes to reach the carrot zone where I left him AFK. Switching to the main man Venti, he had been killing the wooden plank people as Dogbone requested I did, and so I got his Dogbone enemy drops from the planks, which I showed to Dogbone, revealing how he had died. He was killed by Amarok, and well, I wasn't exactly expecting Amarok to just hand over his precious gemstone like it was some kind of gift card giveaway, but he had killed this person by accident, buried them down below the soil so far that they couldn't even dig themselves back up in time to escape. Just how strong was this fabled guardian of the jungle? To distract myself from those thoughts, I let Venti have that midlife crisis for me while I took care of magic. I first reallocated his talent points using a reset potion, since the points that I had invested in Lightning Strike were basically a waste, and then looked at my quest-to-do list, realizing I had somehow missed the picnic stowaway NPC located in Froggy Fields, despite walking past that area a lot of times now. So I bought the 30 anomalies his first quest required, made my way to his platform in Froggy Fields, and he wasn't there? Huh. Well, as it turned out, the NPC was bugging out for me, only appearing for a few frames every time I entered that world mode. And I thought I'd be unable to complete their questline because of this, but then I had a Jimmy Neutron brain blast. Can I do this? And then I can skip through his dialogue fast enough, maybe. Oh my god! That actually worked. What? Just like that, I found a workaround and quickly swapped through all of my characters to repeat the same thing on all four, since all I needed to do was turn in 40 sandwiches with each character, and I got a whole time candy for them in return. Once I did that, I walked each character over to where I let them AFK until the next day, leaving Magic and Gregory on Carrotmans, but when I went to do the same with Venti, an injured soldier laid there, holding onto his last breaths after what must have been an incredible fight to witness. He breathed deep, his arms heavy and his knees weak as he shuddered on the floor, sweating even from his palms. It was clear that he had fought well, but it was looking grim. I couldn't let him die like this. Just faintly, I could feel his appreciation for my efforts shine for all of the pain he must have been in at that moment, as his life replayed before his very eyes, reminding him of every moment that led him to here, every memory and friend he had made, every challenge overcome, every obstacle defeated. I wasn't sure. I think I could see a small smile form on his face then. Magnus! Magnus! It was too late. And we both knew. He began to draw his last breaths, the grip of his fists slowly loosening. Don't leave me like this. The clench of his teeth coming to a release. Magnus! I screamed and I tugged. But his responses became fainter and fewer. It's gonna be okay. Not even okay. It's gonna be great, you know? You know what else is great? To wrap it up for the evening, I remade No Crafting's fighting build, since I realized his double strike chance skill also won't work in this challenge, as it requires use of a warrior weapon. And feeling a bit more confident with this respec, I went into the hiddenish zone of the sewers. I wanted to try and fight the enemies in the zone, since there was an NPC which you can insult and chat to unlock a skilling star talent in the zone after it. And while I knew that the enemies in here were really strong compared to the other enemies I'd met, I was confident that well, that's fine. A few upgrades should do it, right? How many do I need to kill anyway? Oh my god. Yeah, the second day was quite eventful, huh? Well, I left everyone on Carrotmans in hopes of getting a boat and headed to bed. It was now day 3, and as per usual, I booted up the game and loaded in as No Crafting. I claimed his AFK rewards and did my daily task of buying damage statues, spending my balls, which I upgraded my weapon power and defense with, as well as copying a bribe that increased my stamp drop rate by 20%, since I needed them both to buff myself with and to turn in for some NPC quests. Upgrading my maximum mana and chopping efficiency for stamps, I emptied my inventory into the chest, switched to No Crafting's skilling build, and let him mine some more iron, since I hadn't gathered enough to max out my defense stamp the previous day. Second in line was Magic, with who I actually managed to get a Caramel bow. I just speedran home, slapped it in the chest to pick up with Ventilator, checked the merit shop and upgraded my lowest character XP again twice, as well as investing in some World 1 enemy respawn rate, and I actually switched stuff up a bit here. Finally, I know. Instead of following the main path like I had been so far, I let Magic AFK in the beans area with Promovius, since killing 1500 beans there unlocks a side zone of sorts, where both Baba Yaga spawn that I needed to find for Promovius' last quest, and the enemies there have the highest chance to drop half of the armor pieces I was trying to get from killing mobs, to give up on Pants Life, of course, and the white headband. It ain't much, but it's defense, I guess. Next up was Venti, and you already know that I did all the loot claiming and anvil jazz before I quite overconfidently had to go to the Colosseum in Froggy Fields. And, well, it wasn't really going great, which I did not consider when making my master plan for this challenge. The strongest armor I could have got in the entire run has a chance to drop from this Colosseum if you get a score of over 50,000 and defeat every wave, and well, I didn't even scratch the surface of that iceberg. I legit got 3,000 points. Anyways, I decided to town for a bit, opening some choco boxes for gems and toggle between the funny anvil preset to get some more anvil points going, as well as turning in some more of the base damage statues I'd bought before since Venti was my main man, and to be honest, his stats were starting to look quite nice. With all of the stamps, cards, balls, dungeon upgrades and more that I'd gathered so far, I checked up Amarok's wiki page for his stats, and while his fight wasn't quite going to be a cakewalk, I was sure I could attempt to fight him the following day. I banished Venti to the wooden plank land to gather some more XP and slowly unlock the last zone on this path before switching to Gregory. I picked up his AFK loot and upgraded his talents a lot since he was my 4th character already, as the more account-wide boosts you already have active when you're first starting out with them, so he was really fast to level up. I did yet again forget that without a bow, the double arrow chance talent was kinda useless, but that's alright. I grabbed an inventory full of anvil production string, spending some of it to increase my max accuracy stamp level, before selling the rest to reach 7 gold coins, with which I purchased a 20% increase to card drop rate from the bribe shop. That was it for Gregory that day, and I left him to AFK on carriage in hopes of receiving a bow for him too. I finally swapped on over to Venti, equipping and upgrading his bow, which gave him like a huge damage buff by the way, and so I decided to step some Valen Slimes as they drop nice boosting food as well that not only heals you incredibly fast, but also increases your weapon power by 5 for as long as it's equipped. A Big Mac boost of like 15 levels worth of sharpened axe that I saved to use in the fight against Amarok. I also used a few of the time candies I got from picnic stowaway to unlock the red mushroom zone area, and let both Magic and Venti AFK there for some armor drops. Before heading off, I switched back to no crafting and grabbed as much iron ore as I could, increasing my maximum defense stamp level to 15. This was also as high as most of my stamps could even go, since you need to have all the required materials to upgrade their max level in your inventory, and I could only carry about 250 of one item in total. After that, I used my daily minigames to get him a few levels in shopping for extra talent points, got lucky in the spike minigame granting me some gems, and comped the golden anvil upgrade from the gem shop, which allowed me to produce 2 production items at once. This was great both since I got more crafting XP that way, which just equals more talent points to spend, as well as more items to sell for money. I headed off with the following player composition, aiming to hopefully get some armor from the red mushrooms before finally attempting to fight Amarok, and of course leaving Gregory on Caraman in hopes of getting another bow for him. Tomorrow was the big day. I was finally gonna challenge Amarok.
What the hell? Brother got the Iliodas.
The following evening was quite short, but it had the highlight of me encountering the random event of Snack Attack, and as you can see right up here in this corner, this event was literally the only way for me to get a pickaxe without crafting one, like I mentioned at the start of the run. Luckily, the event doesn't end if you die, and it reset all the snakes in the area when I did so I just ignored the boss and each Snack Attack, reloaded the area when most of them were defeated, and rinsed and repeat in hopes of getting that goofy owl looking pickaxe that can drop you. I don't know if it's supposed to end, because it's not ending for me when I keep resetting it, but I don't mind, you know? It's not a 1 in 120 drop if it never ends. You can guess twice what I did when I logged on as no crafting, but hey, alongside the everyday stuff, I bought extra stamps since Papua Pigea. Since Papua Pigea's last possible quest required copies of them, and I maxed out both my defense and accuracy stamps. Switching to Gregory, I did not get a bow, nor any armor from magic. And the cherry on top was that I just barely missed Baba Yaga spawning. God damn it, man. In defeat, I took off Magic's pants, as well as any of the other characters' gear I could put on Venti, storing them all in the town chest. All our map teleports. I'm sure that won't be a problem in the near future. The near future being like literally 2 minutes after I put everyone in the town, FYI. I tried to move people back out around the world, but a meteorite event had spawned right at the entrance of the bean zone, so I basically just got one shot the second I walked through the portal. Felt a bit like the pandemic, so I decided to make the most of my time and paid the picnic stowaway a visit to finish their last 2 possible quests. Yes, they were still bugged, but their quests were easy to complete as they just required me to kill some low-level monsters. Soon enough, the meteorite event came to an end, and it was time to gear up. I equipped Venti with Magic's donated pants and the Carrotman bow, as well as an axe I upgraded for extra stats. For food, I picked up the weapon power boosting Valen Slimes candy and some pizza for healing, equipped my best fighting cards, copped and upgraded an HP boosting stamp from the jungle shop, and finally found myself standing before the entrance to Amarok's arena. The dust slowly settled around Amarok's remains as I wiped the sweat off of my brow. I made my way towards his loot, and there it laid. The one, the only, the fabled desert topaz. Bam! I had reached my biggest goal. I defeated Amarok without crafting an item once. And though it might have just been my imagination, I felt like from above, Fogness was proudly looking down at me. I wasted no time and made my way straight back to the town, spreading word of my victory. Most excited was the builder bird, who had been sitting there, waiting for the moment I brought the sacred rock back home since the start of the game. Jumping in excitement, he flung the rock into the portal frame, activating it and opening up a rift to the next world. Sick shit, man. I was 4 days in instead of a month like I thought it would take me to get this far, if I even could. But things were going a lot smoother than I thought they would be at the start. I thought, you know what? Why stop here? If I could beat World 1 like this, I'm sure I can smack up the second one as well. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I may have defeated Amarok, but I still had NPC quests to complete. Mainly, to kill Amarok many a times over to avenge Dogbone, as well as to reach the top of the living tree all the way over in the top right of the World 1 map. So I got straight to business and remade Venti's build to bonk Amarok a few more times with higher accuracy, gathering 8 out of the 25 required slabs for Dogbone's quest, as well as... After, I just barely finally remembered to catch Baba Yaga spawning to complete Prometheus' last quest. Let's go! Well, that went about how I expected it to. And ended the day with 3 people fighting wooden planks and magic fighting slimes for some reason. I'm pretty sure I forgot to give him a task. With just a few NPC quests left to complete, I was approaching the end of the challenge, or so I thought. I traditionally logged on as no crafting, buying some stamp copies from the shop for Papua, leveling up his wood chopping with time candies, and going to the marriage shop to upgrade my Goblet of Lifesteal talents max level. Switching over to magic, I claimed his AFK loot, unlocking the last zone down this path where Gigafrogs reside, as well as Papa himself wanted a bunch of stamps I had been buying for the last few days. Luckily, his first quest requires a stamp that drops from the Gigafrogs around here, so I just planned to leave magic there to AFK, but his accuracy was way too low for the Gigafrogs, so I went home to respec. I seem to have gotten some RNG's blessings, as I rolled agility twice on his wings, which increases accuracy for mage classes, and with a few of my damage talent points going to accuracy instead, he was able to farm Gigafrogs at a decent rate. I let Venti and Magic AFK there. As for Gregory though, I had a different plan. While I would farm for the Kapow Stump for Papua's quest with Magic and Venti, I needed to get Gregory all the way up the tree over on the right side of the map to reach the telescope NPC. I don't know how that's an NPC, but it says so on the wiki, so I won't question it. Given the enemies in there are chunky, I need to get some upgrades first. So I went to the Carrot Man zone to fish for a bow using time candy, which I got on the first try, hashtag GG's. I also gave him the little katana talisman I got from doing picking stowaways quests, remade his build to include the double arrow chance talent, and then did a small series of placing him on copper, using a time candy for mining XP, heading home to deposit the hour's worth of annual items the time candy also produced, returning to copper, using a time candy, and so on and so forth. I also did the same thing for wood chopping, gaining him a good 20 levels worth of skills, and with that talent points to spend on his build. Finally, I used a time candy at slimes to open up the first tree area and let him AFK fighting sticks. Now, notice how I left no crafting without a task? Exactly! The very last stamp I would need to complete Papua's quest was the stamp called Crystalline. Now, how do you get that stamp, you ask? By actively killing monsters and praying for the 1 in 2000 base chance of a crystal enemy spawning, which then has a 1 in 10 chance of dropping the stamp. No biggie, right? Alright. Now, since crystal mob stats scale off the enemies in the zone you're in, I decided to manually fight in the slime area, which has a nice quantity of monsters roaming around at the same time, as well as fairly low stats. Since I didn't need to invest as many points in damage that way, I could afford to dump most of them into the luck stat, which increases enemy drop rate, to have at least a bit of a higher chance of getting the crystal stamp if a crystal monster even spawned. And so, I AFK'd for about an hour and a half, without a single crystal enemy spawning. I did get some chocolate boxes, which gave me a rose wing upgrade, but I was honestly worried that I would spend 4 times longer trying to get this one stamp than I did for the entire rest of the run. Not really having much of a choice, I logged off for the day with Gregory in the tree and the other 3 fighting Gigafrogs.
Bro, I'm really about to get your pickle chin now, boy.
On the 6th day, I hopped on, foolishly hoping to finish the challenge, and loaded into all 3 of my Gigafrog characters. No stamp, not a single one. Hello, editing Newt here. Basically, I have to get this video up in 2 hours time right now, and I still have a bit of it left. I was gonna include it with voiceover just like the rest of the video, but I don't have enough time sadly. So here's a speedy version. Basically, I loaded in on the 6th day, and the Gigafrogs didn't drop a single stamp. Now, I was confused and worried at first, like, huh? But then I remembered that I was dumb, because I didn't speak to Papua Pigea person, because I didn't speak to Papua Pigea, which means that the stamp can't even drop yet. Same for the crystal monsters. Of course, I spoke to Papua and used the time candy, which instantly gave me 2 stamps, by the way. Haha. Then, as I wrote here in the script, laughing in pain, I spoke to Papua and turned into 2 stamps. After which I bought some of the stamps I needed for his second quest. I didn't have them all yet at this point, but I got them the day after, so it doesn't really matter that much. And then I had to deal with the fact that I needed a crystalling stamp somehow. I looked around for a while and I remembered that in World 2 there is an NPC called Kilroy, which lets you fight tough enemies for a short amount of time, and if you get enough kills you get some skulls, you can spend on cool upgrades, including guaranteed crystal monster spawns. So I did Kilroy's challenge, I didn't get enough skulls, so I spent the gems that I had to try it again, and I got 5 skulls, which means I could buy 1 guarantee enemy drop, and that enemy did not give me the crystalline stamp. So I said, well, fuck it, then I guess I'll just leave the PC on overnight and pray that I get it, even though loot despawns, I'm pretty sure. I left my PC on and I was too lazy to turn off the sound, so I kept hearing the squishing sussy noises of slimes dying, but one time the sound was different and I was like, huh, was that the game? No way was there a crystal monster spawning. I checked, it was the crystal monster spawning, which dropped me the stamp. Quite fucking sick. Literally saved the whole run, hashtag appreciate you. And with that, I turned in Papua's last quest, so there was just 2 left, being the cat with Pickle Bob Joe from the World 2 shop and the tree telescope. I went to the World 2 shop to just buy Pickle Bob Joe because Gregory, there'd be Knave King in the tree, had a shitload of money. That was that quest done, and then the very last one was doing the telescope. And then the very last one was reaching the telescope, so I basically just had to wait a few days, like 2 or 3 days, to get enough AFK time to unlock the last zone. And when you're there, you speak to the telescope, as you do. You skip an hour of time, which I did with time candy, and that was that. Oh, and also I had to kill Amarok a few more times for the stone slabs, but I just did that as I got keys every day. Now I apologize for the slightly anticlimactic end. Do I achieve my goals? That's quite sick. I wasn't sure if I could even do that, but here we are. It was fun. Videos made for the submission contest of the game's creator, and I had a few sleepless nights editing this on time. But that's okay. Because if you're still here, then you must have enjoyed the video, I hope. And if I may, for the first time in my channel's career, ask you to leave a like. You know? If you want to, feel free. You're your own person. And thanks for watching. I put a lot of effort into this, and I'm happy that you found it enjoyable enough to stick here until the end. Until next time. Legends of IdleON without crafting.